maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's just way too many AI tools out there to choose from. And even when you start breaking down the different categories of what you need AI for, so you got coding, you got image generation, you got note taking, you got all these different uh, things that you want to use AI for, and for each one, you got like 32 tools. So I'm gonna break down, and I'm gonna just pick two of my top tools for every single category that I can think of right now, and just give you the top two that I know of in popularity, ones I've used, ones I've heard that are good, so that you can just start with those and just quit the analysis paralysis and just focus on those tools, and then you can move from there to other tools. And hopefully this simplifies it for people that are just overwhelmed about what should I use. Should I use Gemini? Should I use Claude Code? Should I use this? Should I use that? Should I use ChatGPT? Like, it's so many different options. So let's break it down. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first category I'm gonna look up is coding AI, and I'm gonna give you two of my best picks. So I think right now the ones that everybody's using, that I've used, that most people are using for coding is Claude. Claude Code is probably the number one. That's considered probably the frontier model for coding. So Claude Code, you download it. It's a we can scroll down and look. So you can download a whole IDE for it. It's a terminal-based coding platform, and so the first category we're gonna look at is just general chat with AI. So this is, you're just asking it general questions. You're just trying to get some general advice from AI. So of course, ChatGPT was the first big one, and still considered like, the king or whatever. So in a way, for general AI, I think it's starting to lose ground, but I think it's still the top right now. So ChatGPT, you just download it, you just start asking it questions. It's one of the most popular and well-known frontier models. The other one that's really catching ground on it is Claude. I see a lot of people switching over to Claude for just general basic knowledge that you can ask. And Claude has a really cool, clean interface. So if you're trying to choose, I would go either with ChatGPT or Claude. And if you're like Google, you have Android and you're in the Google, interface, then the third one I mentioned is Gemini. I haven't even put it before the other ones. If you got a smartphone that's like Android, it probably already using Gemini a lot. And you're using Gemini when you Google. Like, a lot of times when you Google, that top search result is already using Gemini. So between those three for general questions, I will go with that. The next category I want to look on is coding. And for that, I'm going to start moving into more like IDEs and terminal type stuff. The first one I'm going to bring up is called Cursor. It's a programming IDE. So IDE is an integrated development environment where for years it's a program that programmers use to code. Now they have AI IDEs like Cursor, where the AI is built into the IDE directly where you code, and it can just make coding a lot faster with auto completion, stuff like that. The frontier coding IDEs right now are coding, I wouldn't even say just IDEs, but AI used for coding is definitely Cursor, which under the hood is using different models. It's using some of its own proprietary models from that company, and it's also using some of the models that well, other frontier AI models. But that's what, to keep from just too many choices, I would say start out with either Cursor, or the other one is actually going back to Claude, but not just Claude itself, Claude Code specifically. And let's see if we can get to the documentation for Claude Code. So Claude Code, you would install it and actually would go into the terminal. And I don't know why this is saying Claude Code doc. Where is this Claude? They don't have no website just for Claude Code. That's weird, man. So Claude Code is actually considered probably the best for AI programming, at least as far as public opinion I've seen it goes. And it's not an IDE, but you can install it inside of an IDE. It works inside the terminal of the IDE, or you can use it outside the terminal. But it also can look at your files and start changing your files and mutating your files and coding for you and all that stuff. So Claude Code is probably the number 2 or number 1, if you want to call it, for just coding AI. So it's the pick is between Cursor and Claude Code. The third pick is also Gemini again. Like Gemini is also considered good for coding. Anti-gravity. Google actually just came out with their own coding IDE called Anti-Gravity, which is built on top of Gemini. And so I've heard it's also pretty good. I haven't used it personally, but this will be a good start for you. There are more options to this, but this will be a good start for you for if you're a coder and you want to start using AI more in your workflow. Now, if you're a person, let's go into another category that's a offshoot of coding. If you're a non-coder, somebody that's not very technical, but you want to build apps, you don't want to think about the code and you want to build apps and stuff like that, there's a whole nother subset of AI tools that you could use. And those are called like more no code called like tools. So using these for coding, you could use these as a non-technical person, but it's going to be harder than if you use some of these other no code tools that I'm going to show you. First one I'm going to recommend is one of the most popular ones. It's called Lovable. So Lovable, you see how the interface is completely different from the other coding tools I just showed you. Lovable is more for somebody that's not technical, that wants to build an app, build a website. You just start typing in here just like you're chatting, and what it's going to do is it's going to spit out the website for you pretty directly. Now, these other tools I was talking about before, coding tools, they're going to spit out code more or less for you, and then you have to try to go and try to run it and do some of the other stuff. You got to be more of a technical person. This is more or less going to spit out the website for you and have it ready for you to one-click deploy it somewhere, and have options for you to deploy it further. It's more for when you want to build in more non-technical. Now, you will pay more for these tools because they do more for you, but it's a better option if you're less technical. Now, let's go with another no-code style tool that is competitive with Lovable. It's called Replit or Replit. It's very similar to Lovable. This one's a little bit more technical than Lovable, but like I said, it still spits out directly what you need as far as the apps. Now, you're gonna pay more for it, but you just simply type in what you want, app or design, and it's gonna get you a lot faster if you're not technical to where you want to go. So the other tools are more for technical people, programmers that want to augment themselves with AI, augment their work. These two tools, Lovable and Replit that I just mentioned, are more for non-technical people that want to start building apps directly. They're not trying to code. They're not trying to code with AI. They just want AI to just build them the apps, and they just type in what they want it to do, and fix bugs and stuff like that. So those are the two things for that. So the next area is, like I said, design. So I actually throw Replit into the next area of AI. Like AI can do design for your app. So before you build your app, you might want to get it to do some designing first so that you can pump what you want it to look like into the criteria when you prompt it to build your app. So Replit is a good one. Figma has been well known for years as being the kind of go-to for design. For designers to use to build digital visual interfaces. Figma also has something called Figma Make, which is their AI powered tool for design. Very similar to the other ones where you just type in what you want and it's going to give you, instead of building a whole app, it's going to give you the design first. And then you can print that design out or export that design out and pump it into your other AI tools to build your app. But you can spit this out, and then you can have this spit this out, and you can actually do little tweaks and edits to it and then get it exactly how you want before you ask the AI to build it. And that will help you with turnaround on when you start building it. So I'm going to go with Replit and Figma Make. The other one, is Stitch. I think it's called Stitch with Google. So this is a really good one for design as well. It doesn't have any previews here, but I've already built a couple apps. Oh yeah, it does have previews over here. So like you can go and type in what you want, and it's gonna build you a nice app or website interface design. And then you can take that design, take those images, and then pump them into another AI tool, whether you're using some coding thing like Claude Code or Cursor, or you're using some sort of no-code solution like Replit or Lovable. This will make it where you already have your design defined, and you can pump it back into that. So that's that section for designing interfaces. So the next section, the next category, and probably the final category I'm going to go into is for the next category I'm going to go into is for image generation. So image generation AI. I'm going to see what Google gives me back. So Gemini is probably one of the best now. And it's making me do all this stuff. All right, too many questions. Create image. When you click create image, Gemini is going to go into using something called Nana Banana, which has been one of the most popular models to come out in recent times. Nana Banana is really strong at image generation, so you can type in whatever you want, generate an image, and it's been pretty good. And so that's probably the first one I suggest is using Gemini and just making sure you click on the create image, and it's going to go into using that. The other two I recommend, one is called Mid Journey. It's starting to become, I guess, I don't know, I haven't heard this one as much prompted. And I think you have to actually download like Discord or something to use it. So, but I'm actually gonna go with, I think it's called DALL-E instead of that one. I'm mostly just using Gemini. I think DALL-E is a good, DALL-E is like inside of ChatGPT, and so DALL-E is pretty good too. So I'm gonna just go with those two for image generation for right now. Nano Banana, and then this one. And so yeah, so like so you don't just get too many different options. This just narrows it down. And the last one, I don't really like writing AI. I don't really do much writing. But so if I'm gonna do writing, I mostly just use the regular general models like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and I just let it write. But there are like very specific AI writer tools, but I don't know which one the best. So maybe somebody can come and suggest some. I see Grammarly has one. OpenAI and Claude are both advertising here. Type AI, best for novel writing. So they have these specific AIs that are good for writing, depending on what you're trying to write. Pseudo Write, Ultimate Guide with Writing with AI. But what I think most people are doing is going back to one of those frontier models. So we're talking right now. If I had to give a opinion on which company and which tools are in the lead is overall for general writing and general question asking to AI, I'm gonna go with Gemini. Google had a good year. They were behind in this AI race when it first started, like 2023 when ChatGPT came out, but they really did a lot of catching up and maybe even exceeding as far as measurements with their latest models with Gemini. And so they're one of the frontier models. Gemini is considered one right now. Claude, definitely. Claude Code is probably considered the best for coding in public opinion, and even for general AI questions writing and stuff like that. Claude is pretty good. And then the other one I throw in there, you gotta throw ChatGPT up in there too, because they're catching ground on them, but ChatGPT is still a beast. Codex is really good for coding. That's one I didn't mention earlier. It's actually been giving good results too. And then of course like ChatGPT 5, 5.2, all that stuff is pretty good for general questions. So I know everybody got their own tool. Everybody has different opinions on what they use and stuff like that. But I'm just giving my opinions from what I've heard and what I've used. Please let me know in the comments if there's other tools that you just want to throw in there and that I'm missing and that you want to throw in there, and I'll definitely check them out and maybe change my opinion. Because it's just so many tools. Everybody got an opinion because there's so many. So I definitely like to hear what you think, and I hope this is helpful. Please, like, subscribe, save, share this if you find it helpful. And yeah, I'll see you soon.